Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing here tonight in St. Louis? Good? Welcome to St. Louis, the Gateway City. I'm John Kelly, the TV voice of the St. Louis Blues on Fox Sports Midwest, and I'm honored to be your MC tonight for the National Hockey Coaches Symposium. Mark Tabor asked me to come in for tonight. I'm actually headed to Chicago tomorrow with Fox Sports Midwest for Cards Cubs, so I have the honor of being your MC here tonight. And we have a great program tonight. It's going to be very casual. We have three different speakers, including Chris Zimmerman, who is the president and CEO of the Blues Business Operations. We'll also have a panel discussion, and this should be a lot of fun. It's going to be moderated by one of my fellow broadcasters, Kelly Chase, who, of course, is a former player and is now the color commentator for the Blues on radio, and he's going to moderate a panel including Chris Pronger, Rob Ramage, Big Walt, Keith Kachuk, and also referee Tim Peel. So that's going to be coming up a little later. Later this weekend, as you probably know, we're going to have a lot of other speakers and events. Some of the speakers include Detroit coach Jeff Blashill, former goalie John Van Beesbrook. I saw Beezer back there earlier tonight. And also Nashville coach Peter Laviolette will be here over the weekend. I hear we have about, 400 coaches, men and women from around the country. And welcome to the heartland of hockey, as Mr. Chris Zimmerman refers to St. Louis. I think that started, and maybe Chris can amplify on his remarks, but earlier this year the Blues tried to get the World Junior Championships in a couple of years, and we did a great video and called St. Louis the heartland of hockey. As you know, Buffalo ended up getting the bid, but St. Louis, to my knowledge and to everyone else in St. Louis, I think we really are the heartland of hockey. I personally have been here since 1968, and my dad came here, Dan Kelly, the late Dan Kelly, the Hall of Famer. And when I first came to St. Louis, to give you an idea of how much hockey has grown, there were about 3 rinks. I think there were 2 indoor rinks and 1 outdoor rink, and just a couple of hockey programs. The first year the Blues were here, I looked this up the other day, the Blues averaged 8,897 fans a game in their first year in the NHL. And now here we are, 50 years later, as of course the Blues celebrate their 50th year in the NHL, and hockey's grown so much as far as youth hockey and the Blues. Right now in St. Louis, there are 25 different rinks. There are more coming, as Chris Zimmerman, I'm sure, will tell you. The Blues are going to build a new practice facility. And there are currently 6,800 youth hockey players in the St. Louis area. And the young kids have come up, and as probably you know, in this year's NHL draft, there were 12 U.S.-born first-rounders, including 5 from St. Louis. It's an amazing number. 5 have come out of St. Louis in just this draft. I mean, it's remarkable. And of course, this year the Blues had a great year. They went to the West Final. They averaged almost 19,000 fans a game. And, you know, over the years from the 70s, the Blues had great years going to the final the first 3 years. They had some lean years in the 70s. And then Federico came along. Obviously, Brett Hull, Wayne Gretzky, Chris Pronger, who's going to speak later tonight. But in my heart, I don't think the St. Louis Blues have ever been more popular than they have been right now in 2016. So it's really remarkable to go 50 years to see the explosion in youth hockey and also the explosion as far as the St. Louis Blues and what they have accomplished in their 50 years. You know, a lot of people have asked me over the years, I mentioned my dad, the Hall of Famer Dan Kelly. He broadcast here for 21 years. He's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. You know, how I got involved in my love for hockey. Let me just give you an idea of a weekend when I was, say, 17 years old and why I fell in love with broadcasting and also the game of hockey. My dad also broadcast Cardinal baseball a few years, and it was also a very good football announcer. He did Mizzou football for many years and also football Cardinal broadcast. But I remember one weekend as a 17-year-old, my dad had a very busy weekend. He had a Mizzou game Saturday afternoon, so I drove down to Columbia with my dad on Friday afternoon. We had dinner that night. The next day, the game was at 1:30. I sat next to him in the booth. I spotted for him for the Mizzou football game. Afterwards, the GM of KMOX Radio, Mr. Robert Hyland, the late Mr. Hyland, arranged for a state trooper to give my dad a ride back to St. Louis. So we got in a state patrol car, flew back to St. Louis in the car, and he did a hockey game that night at the arena. And the next day, we got up and drove down to Busch Stadium, the old Busch Stadium, and he did a football game at 12 noon. So that was 3 different broadcasts he did in a span of 26 hours, and I sat next to him for all 3 different events. It was an awesome experience, and no wonder why a kid who wasn't a very good hockey player decided to become a broadcaster. It was just a lot more enjoyable to do that. I only worked with my dad one time in my career, and unfortunately it came late in his career and his life. He was unfortunately diagnosed with cancer in the fall of 1988. And at the time, I was the radio announcer for the New York Rangers. And as so happens, the Rangers had a game in Philadelphia, and 2 nights later, the Blues played the Flyers at the Spectrum. So my dad called me up, this was in late October of '88, and said, I'm going to be in town right after you are. Why don't you stay in town and we can spend some time together, and you can come up to the booth. So I did. I stayed around a few days. And I didn't know this, but that night he asked me to broadcast the second period with him on KMOX. And it was the only time in my career I ever sat next to my dad broadcasting a hockey game. But what also really struck me about that night, he had already begun his treatments for cancer, and he was getting weak. And at the old Spectrum, if any of you have ever been there, they didn't have elevators. We had to walk all the way to the press box, 1 flight of stairs at a time. And I remember my dad walking up there, and after a couple of flights, he'd pause and rest. Then he'd walk a few more flights, finally get to the top, and he did the game. I did the second period, and the next day I got up and flew home. But really what stuck out to me from that night, aside from broadcasting with him, was, why did he continue to broadcast even though he was sick? And the reason was his love for the game of hockey and his love for the St. Louis Blues, because he did not have to be there that night, believe me. But I'll remember that night as long as I live, and as a matter of fact, the Blues won that night 3-1, and that was their first win in Philadelphia at the Spectrum since the early 70s, the night the Plager brothers and Al Arbor got into a fight with the Philadelphia fans and the cops. The Blues had not won. No, it's true, they did. They went in the stands and they had a fight, and that was the first win for the Blues in Philadelphia since the early 70s, and that was my dad's last ever road game, and I'll remember it obviously forever. So I obviously am a lifer as far as hockey, so I feel like I'm with a lot of sisters and brothers here tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. As I said, we have some great speakers here tonight, and we're going to have our roundtable coming up in a few minutes. But first of all, I want to kick off the evening by introducing the president of Missouri Hockey, Mr. Larry Boyd. He's now in his 6th year as president. He's a native St. Louisan. I understand Larry first started watching the Blues in the 70s. He first started playing hockey on a frozen pond in Ferguson, Missouri, and was also inducted into the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame back in 2014. Let's welcome the president of Missouri Hockey, Mr. Larry Boyd. Larry?
Hi, and welcome to St. Louis. I'm really appreciative you've all taken time out of your busy days away from your family, your friends, and quite possibly some of you all have your teams already selected. And that's the fun part, is actually getting on the ice and teaching athletes. That's always been my love. I love playing the game. I fell in love with it. As John said, a bunch of my buddies on a frozen lake, a small pond in Ferguson, Missouri. Had no clue what I was doing, but I had some great mentors. One of the valuable lessons I learned early on was learning to skate. Buddy came up who played really, really terrific hockey up in Canada. And he says, you'll become a hockey player when you forget your feet and disassociate your hips from your feet, you're going to win. So anyway, it's been a lifelong for me. I still coach, As John said, I'm still the president of Missouri Hockey. We've had wonderful growth. We have tremendous support from one of the speakers you're going to hear right after me, and that's Chris Zimmerman at the Blues. They have marvelous programs and support for our young athletes, and without their benevolence and their help, we wouldn't have as many kids in the summertime playing and being introduced to this sport that we all love so much. So what have I learned over the years? I need a wig. So, what have I learned over the years of coaching? And I wish I'd learned probably 26 years ago when I first started coaching. Is one of those is engaging the players and teaching them to advocate for themselves. Whether the kid's 10 or 18 or 20. I found that once I learned that, I've had a better relationship with each of the athletes. They were more comfortable to risk in practice and in games. The parents and I had a better relationship. It was an awesome, awesome experience for me. And again, I wish I'd learned that 26 years ago. I've never stopped listening to parents and to kids as I've coached, and I've coached from 5-year-old kids all the way to 18. And I've loved every minute of it. Now I'm teaching squirts. What I love about squirts are at that age where they've got those aha moments going on. When after a number of revolutions in a practice or a number of practices, it finally works for them, whatever that skill is. And then they're motivated to move to the next challenge. And that's always fun for me. So how do I learn? I'm a guy that started out as a technician in the Navy in Vietnam, and I did some things in Vietnam. But I always wanted to learn more and fix things. So even today, I learn from other coaches, just as you're going to learn here from coaches. And you're probably going to learn from each other, because as I've gone to these camps and clinics and USA Hockey Coaches Symposiums, I learn from other people. I'm always willing to pick brains, because I get great information. I've got this problem. How do I solve this? Help me with this. It's always been wonderful. One of the things we talked about at lunch yesterday, I was with a couple who's been awfully instrumental for us in the growth of hockey, and that's the owners at Total Hockey. And we were talking about some of the things we wanted to roll out, programs for the upcoming years. How do we transition kids from our little blues program into ice hockey without that first initial sticker shock? And it's a challenge we've been working with, so we've came up with some ideas. And one of those things we came up with is, I don't know how many of you all coach or play junior hockey or collegiate hockey, but there's that training period for the new parents when they come in, you know, where the senior parents, the ones that have been around for a little bit, they're mentoring those parents. Because what does a parent want to do? He wants to go talk to the coach because my kid's not getting ice time. Okay, so teaching them, working with them, say, teach your kid or tell your kid to advocate for himself, because the relationships between your kid and the coach. And it really is the same at youth hockey. So they came up with an idea and suggested, it's like, why don't we do the same thing at youth ice hockey? How about y'all go back to your clubs, discuss it with your boards if you're involved in youth hockey. And like kids have a building parent, we associate those parents, those more senior parents, with mite parents, ADM parents, and squirt parents. Maybe we could make it a more fun experience for them, a more profitable experience for them, and start them out the right way, because let's face it, if you all remember when your kids played, or when you played as a kid, you got a million questions, and there's not necessarily a good source to find those answers. So it's something you may want to share. I hope you do. I'm going to be leaving you all now, and again, I appreciate what you've done and what you're doing here this week, and I'll be around, and I look forward to seeing you all and meeting you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Our next speaker is Doug Dietz, the Central District Coach-in-Chief. He is a native of Waterloo, Iowa, began coaching back in '91 with Waterloo in the USHL. I didn't know this, but he played professionally in Yugoslavia and was also a 4-year letter winner on defense at the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point. Let's welcome to the stage Mr. Doug Dietz.
Good evening. How's everybody tonight? Good? Good? Come on. How's everybody doing? Good? Good. Once again, my name's Doug Dietz, Central District's coach in chief. And if you don't know what Central District is, it's Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas. So I cover quite a big territory, and I know there's a few of my staff members are out here from some of the different areas, and I really appreciate those guys that are doing my level 1s, 2s, and 3s. And obviously I cover all the level 4s throughout my district. I usually think about an icebreaker when you get up here and try to do these things. And I look out into the audience and I go, my God, this is the biggest crowd I've ever spoken in front of. And do you think I'm sweating bullets up here? I am. But I'm a hockey coach for Dave Wilkie in the Omaha youth program. I coached the 14U last year, and I'm coaching the 15Us this year. And I also do my CIC coach-in-chief's job with the country in Central District. But professionally, I'm a probation parole agent. And so I start my seminar saying this, I deal with idiots every day of my life. We talk about why they drop dirty or why they blow dirty or why they got arrested for the days, the nights before and over the weekends and everything. And when it comes to hockey coaches, when I deal with a lot of coaches that are a lot more idiots than my parolees that I deal with on a daily basis. So, but the other thing is too that I do is I've scanned the crowd and I've taken pictures of this audience here. So anybody wants to slip out and think you're out of here for the weekend, I got you all on mugshot. So if you don't get your level 5, that's because you left early. But what a great place this is, St. Louis here. I've been down here as a kid, obviously with the Arches, and we used to play down here from Waterloo from time to time, and it's a great thing. Hockey's a great sport, and obviously the coaches, why you're here is because you have a passion. And the passion is now that you're done playing, if you played, now you're coaching. And the passion is giving back to these kids. And giving back to the kids has changed over the years. If you think back of who your coaches were and the product that you were as a coach, I think times have changed now. We used to give the scare factor into these kids, and now it's gone. We have to teach. And the ADM model and the long-term athlete models that USA Hockey has developed and that we're running with is outstanding. I, as a coach, has changed over the years in my tactics, and I'll give you a little tidbit who my college coach was. I played at the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. In my senior year, we won a national championship. It was one of the greatest moments of my hockey career. And I played for a guy named Mark Mazzolini. And if anybody knows who Mark Mazzolini is, he's an Italian guy from Green Bay that had a great coaching career, not only in the USHL but in college, but he scared the living crap out of us. He swore at us, and we called ourselves Hitler's little youth. We called him Mussolini. When I got done playing over in Ljubljana, Yugoslavia, I came back and started coaching with the Waterloo Blackhawks. And at the time, I thought I was Mazzolini, and I had to swear and scream and shout and kick the wall and do all kinds of neat things. But over the years, I learned that's not part of coaching. Part of coaching is reaching out and getting down to the kids' level and educating these kids. And I think that's what the motto of ADM is and the long-term athletes model is with USA Hockey. I think USA Hockey has done a great job of changing the mindset of us as coaches and you guys and gals, and I hope you embrace this weekend what you're up here for. You're going to achieve the highest level of education with USA Hockey, what we give to you guys and gals. I think it's beautiful what we're doing here. I think this is my 4th or 3rd level 5, and the speakers that you will encompass this weekend and the breakout sessions that you encompass will be outstanding. I look forward to meeting some of you or all of you if you can. I'll be around this weekend. I'll be at some of the breakout sessions helping Guy Goslin, but I want to really, really thank every one of you for being here, taking away time from your family, your work, your hockey, and I wish you guys the best of luck and the gals the best of luck this weekend and have fun and enjoy your weekend. Thank you.